Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, and let's look at gods of weights and measure, gods of science, gods of knowledge. Thoth and well-known, Seshat, not so much well-known, there's problems there because she's a record keeper. But what do? Well, ancient Egyptian gods, knowledge, science, gods of weights and measure. Hermes, the Greek version. Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes, or Mercury in Roman, was the god of knowledge as well as the god of weights and measure. Which brings us to Nuwa and Phuzi, and this similarity from across the ancient world from east to west. Who are Nuwa and Phuzi? Well, they were brothers and sisters, and they survived the flood, and they procreated and rebirthed humanity, amongst other things. Notice the tail, the entwined snake tail, just like the caduceus of Hermes, and also can be seen in similar imagery in regards to Thoth. So Hermes carries a caduceus, the snakes about the rod. What does that to do? Connections? Well, Nuwa and Phuzi. Geometry. Compass and square geometry. Nuwa holds the compass, Phuzi holds the square with a plumb bob, which was used to measure the universe by the Emperor Yu, I do believe, according to the legends. So Nuwa and Phuzi created humanity, and they taught them skills such as hunting, fishing, raising domesticated animals, as well as writing. They also taught humanity how to hunt with iron instruments. They're the Chinese gods of alchemy. Ironwork was developed first in China. Ancient China is very, very interesting area. But Nuwa and Phuzi, the teachers, the gods of science, survivors of the flood, rebirthed humanity. Very similar connections. Now, Thoth taught writing to humanity, but Seshat invented writing. So, various depictions of Nuwa and Phuzi, which came later, but even the older descriptions of them. Square and compass, which has astronomical connections because the compass of Nuwa measures the encircling heavens above. The North Star, Mesket-U, is in Egypt. Not Orion. This Orion thing it's got to go. It's the North Star, and this is a constant across the ancient world. Now, compass and square, where do we see that? Well, this is a very potent, very important symbol. Geometry. The universe is geometric. You'll hear certain commentators say that geometry is, and I'm not joking, they say it's satanic. This is such ignorance beyond belief, I must say. Now, what you'll also notice is in the various depictions of Nuwa and Phuzi is these constellation symbols. And we'll have a look at another one because we see Mesket-U, again, the North Star, but compass and square, geometry. Thoth and Seshat connected to geometry. Hermes, god of knowledge, connected to geometry and astronomy. And weights and measures. This is a constant theme between these gods of knowledge, but you have to, geometry and math. But Nuwa and Phuzi, compass and the square. What do we have there? Very reminiscent of certain constellations. You might notice a few others there, and there are also variations of the 36 decans. D-E-C-A-N-S. But the entwined snakes about the rod, and Hermes, or Mercury, the god Hermes Trismegistus, the god of knowledge, god of geometry, god of astronomy, god of weights and measures, commerce, navigation, of science. Temple of Seti I. This is one depiction. Upper and Lower Egypt, snakes around each rod. This rod is a measuring rod, a measuring rod. Thoth, the god of weights and measures. The caduceus of Hermes is a measuring wand. This is a wand. The word wand literally translates to measuring rod. Some depictions of Nuwa and Phuzi. So amongst the other inventions that Phuzi taught humanity was the guqin, which is this 7-string instrument. Now on the reverse side, the traditional one actually includes, that's the spelling, you can look this up, astronomical connections into the back. It's a traditional guqin invented by Phuzi, the square and the plumb bob to measure the universe. Now, how does this connect to Hermes? Well, maybe it's just a mistake, a couple of snakes. Well, Hermes. What is Hermes? Famous for the caduceus, the rod with the snakes and the wings. Well, how did Hermes get his caduceus? Goes back to this ancient legend. Zeus, the sky god, he was the father of both Apollo, the sun god, and Hermes, god of knowledge and measure. Now you'll often see either the arrow of Apollo or the lyre of Apollo. That is a direct connection to the caduceus of Hermes. Hermes is also a trickster god. This is an important feature, which is another similarity across cultures, across time, across the world. But baby Hermes. So this image, you'll often see the baby Hermes. Well, he didn't have his caduceus at this time. Because what happened was, neither did Apollo have his lyre. This happened later. So what happened was, the baby Hermes, the trickster god, god of weights and measures, snuck out of his crib and stole the cattle of Apollo. Apollo knew it wasn't Hermes and went to complain to Zeus. Now there's another connection to this, is the constellation Corvus, the blackbird, the crow. According to the older legends, Corvus was the servant bird of Apollo. Apollo sent Corvus to get him a glass of water, a cup of water. Next to the constellation Corvus is the constellation Crater, the cup. They sit above Hydra, the water snake. Apollo sent Corvus to get a cup of water. Corvus snuck around, was lazy, came back late and blamed his lateness on the water snake. Apollo knew that Corvus was lying to him, and therefore he cast them into the heavens. That's why we have Corvus, Crater, and Hydra, the constellations in there. Don't lie to Apollo. Apollo is very good at lying, and he knew that Hermes had stolen his cattle. He went to complain to Zeus, the father of both of them. Zeus laughed at the exploits of baby Hermes, and Apollo was not happy about this, not happy at all. There was almost war on Mount Olympus, Apollo versus Hermes. But war was averted because Hermes gave Apollo a lyre made of a tortoise shell. Note the 7 strings. So he's only got 4 strings here. Traditional lyre, the Greek lyre, is 7 strings. Now, Apollo was so grateful for this gift of the lyre. Now also to note, you often see these, Hermes didn't have the caduceus yet. First he gave Apollo the lyre, and then Apollo was so grateful for this gift of the lyre, he gave Hermes a wand made of an olive branch. A wand literally translates to rod, wand, measuring rod. Fishing rod as well. Nuwa and Fuzi taught people the skill of fishing. But this gift from Hermes to Apollo of the lyre, then Apollo gave Hermes a wand of an olive branch. That's where the saying to extend an olive branch, a symbol of peace. This exchange of gifts ended the threat of war on Olympus. To extend an olive branch, measuring rod, wand, fishing pole, measuring tool, and the tortoise shell. So that's how now Apollo gave him a wand of an olive branch. Now the snakes came later, symbols of peace. Which brings us back to Hermes. Now, what's the lyre? 7 strings. But Hermes, who at this point only had the wand, he didn't have the snakes around it yet. What happened was, after this gift of peace, Hermes saw 2 snakes fighting. Now, snakes mating and fighting look very similar. But Hermes saw 2 snakes fighting, and he separated them with his wand. And that is how the 2 snakes got around the caduceus. Another reference to peacemaking. Standardized weights and measures is a fundamental of society, of science, but also a peacemaking tool. If we understand the language of weights and measures, and we know a pound is a pound, a pint is a pint, all the world around, we have a common peaceful language. We can avoid a lot of arguments with standardized weights and measures. So that's how the caduceus was born, and why Thoth, god of weights and measures, 2 rods, Upper and Lower Egypt, united under a single set of measures with the 2 rods and the snakes. Nuwa and Fuzi, the entwined snakes. Hermes, Mercury, the caduceus, it is literally a measuring tool. He is the god of weights and measures of science. Nuwa and Fuzi, same thing. Thoth is the same thing as well. So amongst I've got some other videos coming up in regards to Nuwa and Fuzi, but Fuzi also invented the trigrams. I Ching comes from Fuzi. So that's the trigrams. Now you even see this, the cosmic tortoise, which will have reference to 108, but the tortoise as well. This is an important feature connected to Fuzi, but also to Thoth. Now, as the story goes, Fuzi was looking at a map of the Yellow River and then see a water dragon or a tortoise. Now, what's he got? Leopard skin. Isn't that just a bit reminiscent of Seshat, the goddess of measure? Anyway, let's leave that to the side for a moment. The tortoise, the cosmic tortoise. The trigrams were revealed to Fuzi, the I Ching, from the water dragon, the tortoise. So you can see the trigrams, the tortoise. What's important about the tortoise is, now that's a turtle, but the tortoise as well, is a hermetic symbol. It's Hermes gave the leer of a tortoiseshell to Apollo. It's interesting, is it not? So tortoiseshell, Hermes, 7 strings, just like the Gu Ching. Entine snakes, compass and square, astronomy, measuring the circuit of the heavens above, the North Star, Mesketu, not Orion, it's Mesketu, and compass and square, geometry, astronomy, arithmetic, music, 7 liberal arts, strong connections across the world, across time, across cultures. Just touching, this is just the tip of the iceberg where you see the measurable, the symbolic, the items, the literal instruments of these gods cross from Egypt all the way to ancient China. Also, the Nuwa and Fuzi survived the flood. Hermes Trismegistus, the compass and the square, much maligned symbol now because of Icus. Everything's evil except for me. Geometry is evil. Math is evil. Knowledge is evil. Critical thinking, that's evil too. Shame. But Nuwa, Fuzi, compass and square, writing, development, Thoth, god of knowledge, science, weights and measures, as well as writing. I've got more to come on this, but Nuwa, Fuzi, Seshat, Hermes, also you'll see other gods of weights and measure, science, such similarities, like not just sort of vague symbolic ones, but literally the instruments and the numbers and the units that they use between these across the ancient world, across the ancient time. Compass and square, get some geometry into you. Have a good one.